Still here. So welcome to another episode of Badass Banking. Today's a pretty cool episode because I'm talking to a guy named Leif Magnuson, who's the CEO of TipHaus, and Greg Early, who's the director of market engagement for Movin'. Greg's going to ask Leif a bunch of questions today about what TipHaus is doing, why they're doing it, and to whom they're doing it. And I'm the guy that does the intros and probably just asks the spontaneous questions. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm apparently the only one that knows how to use Zoom. I don't really know. So Leif, let me start. What was the genesis behind the idea of TipHaus?
Well, I began consulting for a restaurant group about 5 years ago. I spent 2 years upgrading their tech stack, applying lean principles to the kitchen. Quickly realized that tips and gratuities were hard to manage in spreadsheets, and there was no software incumbents in the market really worth their salt after onboarding the best option available at the time. So I convinced a couple of friends to build TipHaus with me on the weekends, just kind of a side project type of thing. And then we deployed to our first paying customer about 6 months later. The feedback we received was so good that we decided to double down. We were hearing things like we were reducing favoritism, saving a ton of management hours, and reducing employee uncertainty. And so, yeah, it kind of, I think it was just a chance happening, but that's how I think some of the best businesses are built.
And you picked a heck of a time. I mean, this has been a grueling time for the restaurant industry. You use the word uncertainty, and I think we're about to enter a new era of uncertainty. As we enter this so-called recession that some deny is occurring and others say is already here. So the data will tell the truth ultimately, and we'll hear more about that in the next couple days, I think, as we wrap up the quarter.
Well, along that line, we made it through COVID, which was, zero growth for an entire year. I think that anything is going to be better than that.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Well, it was kind of interesting because my wife and I've worked in restaurants. I've been kind of a food guy from the publishing side of stuff, working with food celebrities and folks. So this is an interesting industry for me. And sounds like a great product because on so many levels, the service industry there's so many moving parts to it, and the people come and go, and just the amount of turnover is unique to a lot of industries. And then you have what's happened where, the takeout has come in, the delivery services are taking a hunk that wouldn't be there if people could show up in the restaurants. And I saw, there have been things floated I've seen where they're going to no tipping and just adding something to the bill. And my wife was just away somewhere, and she was saying that that's what they did was it was a 20% surcharge on the menu. And it went not only to the servers, but to the chefs and, the line cooks and all, which has been kind of a new concept as well. So does TipHaus take all this into consideration with the flexibility of rules and things of that nature when putting together that kind of payment program?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad you brought it up. But, from a legal perspective, there's federal laws and there's state laws. Federally, you can tip out the kitchen. There's a lot of state laws that prohibit it. And, for whatever reason, just kind of behind the times a little bit. We see it moving more in that direction because most people think it's, fair to throw the cooks deserve some portion of the tips. We go to restaurants to eat food at the end of the day. The service can be great. The food's not great. Are you going to come back? Probably not. So, tip the cooks a little bit here.
Yeah.
They've been underpaid traditionally. So we are seeing an increase in their wages. We're seeing an increase in tips going to the back of house. A lot of that's due to necessity, just because they have a hard time retaining those individuals.
So parse it down. Where, could you go through, and I know your site does a pretty good job of explaining this, but just for this audience here, how it benefits each aspect of a restaurant, from the servers to the managers to the owners, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, just in general, we tie into the point of sale. We pull all relevant, sales data down to the item level. We pull all the shift data. Then we compile that in complex ways so that, we can make sure that if you're working at a specific time on a specific table, you're tipping out people that were working during that period of time, et cetera, right? And so for servers, that means they get fair tip allocations, which is nice for them. They don't have to sit there scratching their head like, why did I tip out Joe? He worked in the morning and I was working in the evening, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We offer a lot of transparency around where tips are going, which is another huge, it's a lot of money in some cases, right?
Yep.
A lot more money than their wages in some cases. So we give them an employee app. They can look through all that kind of stuff, see their metrics, maybe peer-to-peer money from one person to another. A busser goes out of their way, helps me tremendously with something, right? And then, what we're working with Mobin on right now is to drop that money, that tip money, into a bank account on the day that they earn it. This has been the most requested feature over the last year and a half, I would say. We've got a wait list of about 250 restaurants signed up for it. And so, just getting access to their money when they earn it is nice, not having to wait for their paycheck, and then not forcing the restaurant to have to hand out cash, right? Nobody has cash anymore, so they have to go to the bank or have a Brinks truck show up or something. It's just a hassle. So that's, those are kind of the benefits we prescribe to the servers. On the manager side, it's just basically not having to deal with silly questions every day, right? Like, hey, why did I get tipped this and not that kind of thing, because it's all in the app. And then they don't have to spend a bunch of time doing what's the equivalent of like taxes on a daily basis, right? Jumping into a spreadsheet and figuring out where, who gets what. And it's just a boring thing to do. So they don't have to do any of that anymore.
Well, and usually they have such a limited bandwidth anyway. When the managers get in, they're dealing with so many other things, and the trucks are showing up and the people are calling sick, they're redoing schedules. Yeah. So that anything to save time.
But if you can get the manager out of you don't want your manager in the back of it, sitting behind a computer. You want them managing. That means dealing with people, employees. It's a full-time thing. So yeah, it helps tremendously on that front. For the owners, it helps retain talent. Making happy employees makes sure they want to stay around longer by adding transparency and all that kind of stuff. I would say one of the big components, like larger owners, 50 unit plus type chains, are more concerned with legalities, possible lawsuits. Yeah. And so having a chain of custody on these tips and documentation and records, and then clearly presenting that to employees means that you can kind of mitigate that risk to a certain extent. In most of the cases, we did a pretty extensive analysis on it, but there's tremendous amount of class action lawsuits in the restaurant space, especially chains, right? They've got a ton of employees. It makes sense. But what we saw with those cases, most of the time, there was no real infraction, but there was a perceived infraction, and so they were settled anyways for $3 million kind of thing. So yeah, we see a lot of benefits on that front.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the sheer clarity that it brings is something that's would be appreciated, because the industry is so fraught with that. And like you said, I mean, you can walk off your shift and leave a table for somebody else, but then who gets that? How is that assigned, and all the various things that happen? Or I know firsthand that the servers come in the next day and they want their tip out money from the night before, and they're have to wait for a manager to go down to the safe to get out the cash, right?
Yeah.
And every time somebody shows up, they have to go to the get the cash, and how they're counting it out and everything else becomes, and there's no real backup for managers who generally aren't accountants. That's not what they went to school for. So
sounds like a lot of efficiencies coming from this, because I worked for a restaurant years ago as a dishwasher. And I can tell you from my own experience how disorganized that kitchen and that back office was, between scheduling, paying us, and putting out the fires day in and day out that a restaurant owner has to deal with. It's overwhelming. And I can't imagine it now that labor is so scarce and you've got all these other, operating restrictions due to, COVID and its impact.
Yeah, especially all the chains too, because the bigger they get, the more the less communication there is, I think, and the more employees feel a little out of control with how everything is managed. You have, or TipHaus has, an earned tip access program. Could you talk a little bit more about that and how it differs from what most people are doing?
Yeah. So we had the brilliant idea to trademark earned tip access. We kept on hearing earned wage access runs. We trademarked earned tip access. Pretty excited about that. But basically what we're doing is that we're able to offer for the first time instant access to funds. And when I say instant, I mean instant, not same day ACH, which oftentimes is not the same day as we know. We're able to offer instant funds, free access to those funds, so we don't have to charge the employer or the employer because we're making money off the interchange. And then we're able to do this all without having the restaurant present a float. This is the way this comes down to the way that we're moving this money around. But all the incumbents, for instance, require a pretty hefty float sitting out there. And as a restaurant with low margins, you're asking me to put 50. I had a customer, 5-unit customer in New York, say that they had to put $50,000 into a float account.
Wow.
Obviously, they're signed up for our beta, but all this will be released in August.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating because again, who pays for that float, right? So that works out brilliantly for everybody because certainly the restaurants usually don't have that cash flow. And so, is there an ideal customer that you have? Like, is it a larger sort of a 5-restaurant group, a 50 individual restaurants? Can they benefit from that as well? I mean, I know I live in Charlottesville, so we have 3 restaurant groups that pretty much dominate the entire market, and they each probably have about 5 or 6 restaurants that they use. But how scalable is it, I guess?
Well, we built it to be super scalable, but right now, due to our earned tip access program release here, we are focusing, and we've been focusing on is the higher volume restaurants, well managed, higher volume, higher end in a lot of cases. If you're doing, or we even have some burger places that are doing $10,000 a day in revenue, but it's more of it's the kind of operation that could pull in PE money, as an investment if they wanted to. They tend to be easier to work with in a lot of ways. They're less likely to be family owned and have a bunch of weird different policies and less of a organizational structure. But I don't know, but we can't, we can service up to 1,000 unit, there's no real limit on that front.
Cool. And as far as setting up rules for different things, I know each restaurant sort of has their own thing. Is there flexibility within TipHaus for that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where we stand apart from the crowd. There's plenty of other, competitors, and they're coming out every day. Toast came out with theirs, 7 Chefs has something, but they're all fairly basic. And what we realized, we released 3 years ago, right, to our first paying customer, is that over that period of time, we've had to add in a ton of just weird little tweaks and changes that are literally, game stoppers for these customers. We could handle everything, but you can't do this report this way, and handle, that. Or you can't distribute tips in exactly this way. Well, we have to find another option because our 2,000 employees are used to doing it this certain way. So, to answer your question, we've got the most flexibility on that front in the market currently.
And I'm sure that probably helps if you have restaurants that are in various states as well, since you have different kinds of rules that come in at the state levels, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And we try to coach a little bit around legalities. We don't want our customers to get into any legal trouble. I mean, I will say, we're not legal experts in any way, but we can give feedback on that front. We've had situations, for instance, where restaurants want to do things that are a little bit could be deemed illegal in a certain way.
Pushing the envelope a little bit.
Yeah, maybe we're gonna step away from this one. You can figure your stuff out. Maybe you'll come back.
Yeah. So you're in beta at this point, and you're getting pretty close to launching. I sort of have an idea, but I'm speaking for the broader public.
The beta is going to be starting up in August here, and then we're running alpha through July. But yeah, we're all very excited about it over here, and giant wait list. A lot of our customers are going to sign up for it. But yeah, we imagine there's going to be it's going to be fairly appealing to all the people that are utilizing some sort of card payment system, whatever program it might be. They're pretty ubiquitous at this point. We imagine those kinds of customers are going to be pretty keen on checking out our offering in that space.
Well, I know Movin and Syncterra are, we're working together with you on it, and it's been a pleasure so far. It's a lot of fun solving this kind of a problem. It's almost fintech with a purpose, and I consider you a fintech, although you're probably on that fringe. But now that you're going to offer house money, you truly are offering a fintech neobank experience. How would you measure success for house money?
I'd say, long term, what we really want to do is incentivize employees to, direct their attention in the right ways, right? The most efficient way to make the most amount of money for these employees, and then help them on the back end of that, putting their money in the right place as far as savings or spending their money on the right things via the great tools that Movin's providing to us, in our banking app. But that's kind of where we see ourselves sitting in this ecosystem. We don't want to just be like a simple tool here, or we just don't want to get your money onto a card and hands up at that point. Like let's create a long-term relationship with these employees and really help them as they move out of their serving careers into something else.
Would the goal also be to get some of these servers' families more involved with the app as well, or is this just focusing on the individual employees?
Well, anything's possible. Right now, we're focused on the employees. So no real plans on that front, but we're fairly open to pivoting. That's what any good company requires, especially in these times.
The pivot's the most fun. I'm telling you.
It is.
Keep
it exciting.
I'm in the middle of another pivot right now, and it's all very exciting. To your point. Well, listen, we've really enjoyed getting to know you over the last several months. Actually, it's been over a year. I know Tim White, our former sales guy, is kind of rooting from you. He's now in now in pilot trainings. He's somewhere at 32,000 feet as we speak over Richmond.
Wow, I had no
Virginia.
idea.
Yeah, that's
Literally
what he's
at
doing.
this point.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
That's what he's doing. But Tim's always asking, like, what's Leaf up to? What's Leaf up to? So where did the name Leaf come from? Because Leif Magnuson.
I haven't corrected you, but it's actually pronounced Leif.
Leif. Okay. So it's not like Leif Erikson the Viking. Okay.
There's two schools of thought there, and we get, I have battles with Leafs. There's quite a few people with my same spelling, and they're called Leaf, and there's Leif. Two schools of thought, really. But yeah, I was named after Leif Erikson.
Oh, okay, that's cool. And one last question: are you a good tipper?
I mean, 20% across the board. So I don't know if that's good or bad these days, but
I think my average is 20. I tend to be very good to certain bartenders for whatever reason.
Well, you gotta be. You want your drink served up within 5 minutes.
Yeah. But
grease the wheels.
Yeah, I use the tip to condition a behavior, So,
yeah.
And I want them to know I'm going to be a good tipper if they take care of me.
Yeah.
Well, again,
the original pay to play.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, we appreciate it. I'm going to put all your information and a link to the site and a link to your LinkedIn profile, as well as Greg's. Greg, I'm shocked to hear that you're involved in the restaurant industry and are a foodie, although I do see some of your Instagram photos. Maybe I'll find a way to edit some food shots in here for the fellow foodies out there. But all the contact info will be in the description. And again, we enjoyed the time we spent with you today, and we look forward to that launch. And we'll be talking about it. You'll be talking about it. And we'll keep the audience involved in when the dates all fall together and the product goes live.
Well, I appreciate it, Brian. Appreciate it, Greg. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
Take care, guys.
Take care.